So please join me in welcoming Karen August.
Well, hello everyone, my name is Karen August, as Jim already said, and I'm going to be talking about the discourses surrounding racism in the media, as evidenced in the Paul Henry saga. For those of you who haven't watched it, this is what all the fuss was about with the Sheila Dixon.
Anyway, so there's that yarn. Also the dipshit woman. God, what's her name? Dick Shit. Is it Dick Shit?
Dixit.
Oh,
Dixit.
oh, Dixit.
Dixit.
It just looks different to what you say.
Well, it looks like Dick Shit.
I know it does, Paul, but it's not that. It's Dixit.
There she is there. Sheila Dick Shit. Anyway, and it's so appropriate because she's Indian. So she'd be Dickin Shit, wouldn't she? Do you know what I mean?
For her name
Walking on the street.
is Ms. Dixit.
Oh, Dixit. Well, that's what I said, isn't it?
No.
It's just so funny. Can we just have another look at the key? It's just so funny, isn't she? So, how we asked Mrs. Dick what the condition of your apartments was like. Well, they're a bit mucky. Anyway, so that's a bit funny, isn't it? Delhi Chief Minister Sheila Dick. Anyway, I've known about her for a while, and I've been laughing ever since.
Right, moving forward along. And here's the Governor General in Sir Anand Sachdev.
Finally, it's almost time, is it, for you to choose a Governor General?
Yeah, again, it is. What happens is we have to choose, because the current Governor General, Sir Anand Sachdev, is finishes in the middle of next
Is he
year.
a New Zealander?
Yes, he's a New
Are
Zealander.
you going to choose a New Zealander who looks and sounds like a New Zealander this time?
Well, in fact, every Governor General since Porritt has been a born New Zealander.
Yeah, so we're going to go for someone who's more like a New Zealander this time, though? Will you go for someone who you look at?
I'm open to invitations.
I'm going to tread very carefully here because I do want this job. Not this time round, I appreciate it. Because I don't want to spoil our friendship.
No.
All right, this is the list that, oddly, this is the list that Republic New Zealand came up with.
Yep.
Right, so moving right along. The data selection for this research was taken from the online website YouTube and was taken by searching in the names Sir Anand Sachdev Paul Henry or Sheila Dixit Paul Henry. The first video clip pertaining the incident was examined to determine whether it had at least one full page of comments posted from the month following each incident, and the first clip to meet this criteria was selected for analysis with the second to last page of comments taken as raw data based on the logic that it was full of comments from that month. The analysis. Both sets of data were read through initially with a very broad, low-level content analysis and a categorisation of comment valence, i.e. pro-Paul Henry, anti-Paul Henry, ambiguous or unrelated. Subsequently, as a research team, we underwent thematic analysis, extracting the nature of the arguments used in the previously noted broad content analysis categories. Right, specific characteristics in the medium. First off, anyone can access it equally, and this medium can be entirely anonymous. In this way, it can be thought of as a very egalitarian medium, as the only requisite is periodic internet access, and total anonymity can be assured by falsifying sign-up details, with the only real requisite being a working email address, which can also be made up using false details. Thus, there is no distinction between people based on ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, and or gender. Conversation is not necessarily requisite. By with this, I mean that people are able to comment without regard to anything that anyone else has said, and also with no real pressure to receive validation or response from anyone else subsequent to the posting. There is no need for honesty or civility, and this characteristic poses some interesting points. Firstly, it is impossible to be absolutely sure that what someone posts is their real opinion, and not just posted for the heck of it, but also because civility isn't a prerequisite and anonymity can be assured, it can also mean that this is a very pure medium, without ties to what other people are thinking influencing someone else's thoughts. In this sense, it can be thought of as a very raw data source. There is no serious consequences for posting aside from possible censure. And ultimately, because of the combination of the previous characteristics, there is no consequences for anything said, be it dishonest, inflammatory, wild accusation, unrelated, a second-hand opinion, or just thorough nonsense. There is no way for anyone to identify you on the street or impede your everyday life. So what you say on YouTube stays on YouTube. The only real consequence that they can impose is censure, and even then you can continue posting, or at the very most you have to create a new account and then you can continue whatever you felt like. Right, one thing to mention is trolls. These are people who write inflammatory remarks simply to incite a reaction. And in my analysis of 1,000 comments, I came across 3 trolls identified by their inflammatory remarks that seem to be designed only for inciting reaction, and the fact that they're repeated quite often. Another thing to mention is swearing. As Jim mentioned, this can be a very obscenity-filled medium, by which I mean out of 500 comments, there were 104 instances of swearing in the Sachinan sample, and comments that included swearing tended to have only about one swear word in the comment. Whereas if we compare this with the Sheila Dixit sample of 500 comments, there were 398 instances of swearing, and comments that used swearing tended to have about 2. And most of the time, swearing was used to add emphasis to an argument. However, sometimes comments just were entirely created out of swear words and seemed to have no real purpose at all. Conversation on YouTube. The cyclical descent into doom, by which I mean conversation when it occurs, which isn't that often. Usually it's simple two-turn conversations which tend to be either concise agreement or disagreement with what was originally posted in the first comment. However, when a conversation of more than two turns did occur, it tended to degenerate into an unrelated conversational warfare. It often happened when there was a pro-Paul Henry person commenting against an anti-Paul Henry person, and it most often spun into tangentially related topics, often resulting in nation versus nation arguments and playground-like one-upmanship. Thus a cyclical descent into doom. This appears to happen because people often talk past each other, not registering or even caring about the other people's opinions, rather dead set on winning the argument or getting 1 point on the next person. And the resolution was rare. Out of the 200 conversation clips consisting of more than two or more comments, I found one instance in which people actually reconciled and agreed in the end after starting out hostile. So, what do people actually think about? How does the public feel? So this is a poll taken off the stuff.co.nz website, and please note there may be some biases within the reporting, as it may be that only people with extreme views vote. And if we take a look at it, the people in orange believe that he should have been sacked. The people in red, the red section shows that people who think that he should have been suspended for long ago but not fired. The light blue represents people who think it was absolutely spot on that he was suspended for 2 weeks, and the dark blue states that he has basically done absolutely nothing wrong. So how does our data stack up? Well, this is the comment valences for the Sheila Dixit comments. If we look at this, it shows that the light blue, which was unrelated, makes up a very large percentage. Dark blue was unrelated comments, and they tended to be just absolute truck, really. The orange was anti-Paul Henry comments, and we've got the red here, which was pro-Paul Henry. And if we compare that data with this, which was for these Anna and Sachinan comment, we see not only an increase in off-topic posts, but we also see that a greater portion of the comments were now pro-Paul Henry instead of anti-Paul Henry. Right, the pro-Paul Henry arguments for Sheila Dixit. This is just an unrefined rendition of it, but the top cluster is semantically related with, it seemed to centre around the idea that it was he's defensible because of a stereotypical Kiwi humour or attitude, by which I don't mean that this is the stereotypical Kiwi humour, but this is just the argument that people were drawing on, that that's what he was using, and therefore it's justifiable. The second section, freedom of speech, is more of an enlightenment discourse, and the third cluster is just a hodgepodge of lesser used discourses, which we nevertheless would mention. These included, no one's forcing you to watch it, only the second part is bad, so laughing at her name wasn't bad, the fact that he continued on wasn't bad, it was the fact that he said, and it's so appropriate because she's Indian, was the only bad part about it. People are becoming too PC nowadays. Social comparison, by which I mean people were saying things such as, if Hone Harawira did this, no one would bat an eyelid, it's because a white man did this. And it went on too long, but otherwise okay. The main discourses surrounded the idea that people who are taking offence at the comments need to harden up and or lighten up, and that he's just saying what we're thinking. And intertwined with these three dominant discourses is the pervasive idea that the comment was intended solely as a joke and should be taken as such, along with statements that the comment was simply hilarious. For example, and you've never laughed at something like that, a name, someone falling over, someone wearing something funny, a mispronunciation of word, you know, you're just like him, just like the rest of us. He just did it on camera. Get off your high horse and grow a life by Demon Venom Cat. The discourse of harden up, which is present in the comments relating to both the Sheila Dixit and the Sir Anand Sachinand incidents, centres around the notion that people are becoming too sensitive in New Zealand these days, and this is evidenced by people taking offence at this innocent jest. Thus, it dictates that people need to harden up. They are characterised by directives that people need to harden up, or are too sensitive. For example, harden up, you people, stop being pathetic, worry about something that will actually truly affect and change people's lives. If you can't handle an opinion, then do yourselves and the rest of us a favour and jump off a bridge, because you will hear plenty more opinions that you're not going to like in life. Grow up like Gallardo 11. Lighten up is centred around the notion that people are becoming too serious, and this comment is intended solely as a joke and should be taken as such. It suggests that people need to lighten up and learn to take a joke, characterised by directives that people need to chill out, calm down, getting worked up over nothing, or should learn to take a joke. For example, come on, lighten up, it's not that bad, who cares? Right. Saying what we're all thinking. This was used to excuse and explain the comment by saying that he's simply saying what we're all thinking, which is rather self-explanatory. It suggests that most people would have a giggle at such a last name, and that for this reason it's warranted. It overlaps with the exceedingly common idea that this incident is just plain funny. And combined, this suggests that a lot of these people think that it's normal to find the name funny, and even when tempered with remarks that the second part is probably bad or a bit far, the laugher is deserved, appropriate, or acceptable. For example, it's funny as harden up, no one here can say they didn't get a smile when they saw her name. Go Paul Henry, best guy on NZ TV. He's not afraid to say what we all really want to say. Bradley Thompson Magic. Freedom of speech. Use of this discourse mainly centred around the enlightenment principle that people should be free to express their opinion without fear of reprisal. It was often mentioned that freedom of speech is one of the basic rights to which New Zealanders are entitled, and to deny Paul Henry this right is wrong. For example, I love this country, we are free here, free to say what we think and free to laugh at the name Dixit. Lol, I agree with it. Additional discourses used to defend Paul Henry on this chart was the 2PC, which wasn't actually too prevalent in this, and lighten up and harden up discourses seem to take its place. Change the channel, basically saying that if you're choosing to watch him, and if you're easily offended, then change the channel. Freedom of view and people. And equal discrimination, meaning that he doesn't discriminate, he laughs at everyone. This is not his first offensive remark, and should not be taken too seriously because his sense of humour is to insult everyone. Right, the main and the anti-Paul Henry arguments for the Sheila Dixit incident. The top one again is refers to professionalistic and large-scale accountability discourses. The second cluster is more in reference to discourses centering around the base arguments of why the material wasn't funny. And again, the third is less prevalent discourses that still do deserve mention, especially in the supporting role. He has no right, it's immature, it's archaic racism, it doesn't belong in the century, not his first offence, it's publicity seeking or it's social comparison, i.e. if someone did this in India, then they would not get away with this. Main discourses tended to be linked to a few major things, largely that it's plain racist to laugh about another culture, even if it is simply about a name. This is mentioned along with comments that are simply not funny, socially disrespectful, and not as first offence. Furthermore, there was a pervasive idea that it was even more offensive because it was on TV and or was unprofessional. One of the main discourses utilised in this was that it's completely unacceptable to say such things because it's on national TV, often stating that while it may be interpreted as funny in some social situations, it does not belong in a news show, also obviously in the public eye. Related to this is the idea that it's unprofessional or bad journalism to act as he did, and that this is the main problem with his behaviour, that his deliberate mispronunciation and wanton misuse of his privileged position is the deplorable part. For example, aren't journalists supposed to work in a culturally safe and respectful manner, incorporating the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi and being mindful of the cultural diversity of our community? Open channel. And yes, we all make jokes. I laugh at funny names too, but there is a line, come on. Be a little respectful. You're on national TV for crying out loud by precious. He's tarnishing our international image. They say that this discourse was used to say basically that it's reflecting poorly on New Zealand's international image, that his comments are giving the world a negative impression of New Zealand, especially since the media is now so easily international. And this is the main reason why his comments are so problematic. This was often combined with regrets on behalf of New Zealand for his behaviour, or comments that he does not represent most New Zealanders' opinions. For example, is he insulting Indians or his own country and portraying a picture of manners which New Zealanders have? I know he is one of kind and projecting wrong behaviour on behalf of his country. New Zealanders should be more offended by this because a racist is representing them in a large number of viewers and bringing a bad name to their nation. By Namajas, 2005. This discourse basically said that it's racist to do so. It often didn't actually explain why they felt it was, but nevertheless it was very pervasive, so it is. It's disrespectful or not funny. Mainly states that the material is not suitable for a joke, and to use it as such is inappropriate and not funny. There are several reasons given for why the comments were disrespectful, ranging from it's disrespectful to say such things about a lady, to it's disrespectful to the entire nation to laugh at a name, therefore the language or culture. For example, respect should always become before jokes, especially if you're an anchorman in front of a camera. By Zen Tarknight. Right, the Sir Anand Sachinand incident, moving on to, and the Pro Paul Henry arguments for it. The main ones, again in the top section, are related to the idea that it's a Kiwi humour or attitude, as I explained in the earlier section. The second, blame it on TVNZ, is a discourse shifting the blame away from Paul Henry. The third is the Governor-General deserved it, or it was a simple mistake. People said that he deserved it for a variety of reasons. The last section again is related as lesser used discourses. The equal discrimination, which has come up again, freedom of speech, no one's forcing you to watch it, again, everyone's becoming too PC, social comparison, and it wasn't meant to be bad, it just went on too long, we came across a bit badly. Right, the main Sir Anand Sachinand Pro Paul Henry discourses, once again, were the most prevalent with a harden up, i.e. it's just a remark, get over it, coupled and intertwined with the idea that the comment was quite funny and or innocently made. It was again frequently mentioned that he was just saying what we're thinking, and because it was within his rights to say as much because it was freedom of speech. For example, if we didn't have people like Paul Henry in this world, life would be a PC ball. Get over it, this is a country of free speech, if you don't like it, move, but you does that. Blame it on TVNZ. This discourse was actually only brought out to defend him in the Sir Anand Sachinand incident, which was interesting. It's revolved around arguments saying that TVNZ was encouraging him to say edgy and slightly controversial things, thereby laying all the guilt on TVNZ. It suggested that because he was encouraged into saying such things, it's not his responsibility and he should not have been suspended. The comments were posted before his resignation. Furthermore, the comments did not often address whether Paul's comments and laughter were racist or appropriate. I don't think only Paul Henry, for example, I don't think only Paul Henry should take the fall for something the invisible people in the background of TVNZ had clearly supported him do it. All this time to get their ratings. All very predictable, really, by Mr. Double Kitten. It's just a joke. Effectively attempts to displace all the guilt under the argument that the comment was intended solely as a joke and meant no harm. Thus, any offence taken is mainly the fault of the observer, not Paul. It was commonly intertwined with the idea that it was blown out of proportion, which is a fairly explanatory discourse, and seeks to defend Paul often by suggesting that the whole debacle had been blown out of proportion, and that while the comment may not have been the wisest move, it has been too greatly exaggerated. For example, lol, it's funny how people make a big deal out of this. Maybe Paul didn't know the Governor-General was born in New Zealand, but I think the whole thing is taken out of proportion. And if you're wondering at the little thing down the bottom, it's my idea of a joke. The discourse that he deserted, or is a simple mistake, is mentioned that the comment may have been deserved because his Kiwi identity was not instantly apparent. It meshed well with the States What We're Thinking and its honest mistake discourses. However, there were some who commented that the remarks on his validity and Governor-General were warranted on more impolitely race-centric reasons. For example, in all seriousness, does Anand Sachinand sound like a New Zealand name? Does he look like a New Zealander? I'm not saying this makes him less able to do the job, but you would not, if you saw him, be able to tell him as being a Kiwi. By Richie D. Sick. Paul Henry has only said what the majority of New Zealanders probably think. In China, I would expect the Governor-General to be Chinese and Chinese-looking. In India, I would expect the Governor-General to be Indian and Indian-looking. It is not about racism, it's about identity. New Zealand's Governor-General should ideally be a statistically typical New Zealander as per last century, i.e. European, or better still, Māori/Pāmotu. Additional discourses, once again, if you don't like it, change the channel, no one's forcing you to watch, the equal discrimination, people are becoming too PC, and the freedom of speech, which was actually a lot less prevalent in this discourse. The anti-Paul Henry arguments, the top cluster centres around the idea that the comments were racially based and therefore inappropriate. The second cluster again deals with more accountability, responsibility-based arguments, and the bottom section is the lesser used discourses, most of which have been mentioned before. The dominant anti-Paul Henry discourses concerning this incident is that there's no stereotypical Kiwi look or sound, often posed as a question or a joke, and was coupled with the idea with a comment positing whether Paul's sentiments meant that he thought only Pākehā or Māoris could be or are Kiwis. For example, wow, I wonder what a real New Zealander looks and sounds like these days. I've met thousands of them, most are very different. One of the things I love about this country, obviously a few not shared by some, by unbreakables. It's not his first offence. Basically he said it's not the first time that Paul has said something offensive or made a remark at someone else's expense. They use this as an argument as basis for condemning Paul, while others merely used it as acceptance that a suspension was bound to happen, regardless of their feelings for Paul. However, some used it to redeem him, saying that this isn't his first time, and it's just his style. Right, so the newspaper data was collected for both incidents using the ProRequest ANZ Newsstand search engine, typing in either Anand Sachinand or Sheila Dixon along with Paul Henry as in the first case. The condition was set that the article must have been published before the end of 2010, and the ensuing massive titles was only used if directly pertaining to Paul Henry in at least one of the incidences in more than one passing manner. They were also discarded if editorials or letters to the editor. The newspaper analysis showed multiple discourses which repeat from the YouTube comment analysis. However, the predominant discourse repeated was the same what you're thinking discourse, mainly through use of the citation made by TVNZ spokeswoman Andy Brotherton, saying that Paul Henry was prepared to say things we quietly think, but are too scared to say aloud. Discourses tended to be concerned with higher level things compared to the YouTube comment discourses, instead of focusing on more specific details. By specific details, I mean whether or not Paul, the remark was racist or not, whether or not people should take offence, and by the larger scale consequences, higher level discourse, I mean things like the international repercussions, as in the trade with India and Commonwealth Games, if it affected either of those. The government reaction was often cited, with reactions from assorted ministers being quoted, most of which had a condemning tone rather than defensive. It tended to allure more often to financial or economic motives for retaining and replacing Paul Henry and the consequences for either action. For instance, Progressive Foods Enterprises threatening to remove its advertising contract from TVNZ. However, it was not wholly one-sided, as many articles mentioned the rating side of things, with one article even mentioning 100,000 plus viewers decline from breakfast since Paul resigned. When quotes from Paul were used, when not directly from the two incident clips that I showed you, they showed a less than apologetic stance. He's always been furious about two things: that his family got dragged into it and the apology, because he always thought it was complete overreaction for India to demand an apology, and that it was even worse that we gave it. This was quoted from a friend of Paul Henry's. And we're apologising for one person in the country exercising their right to freedom of speech. I think that's an outrage. That's Paul Henry himself. This was coupled with quotes where he states that the fault was not his, but he was given it anyway. I was a performing snake with a sting in its tail. The better the performance, the greater the encouragement. And then when I turned around and bit someone's head off, they were happy to see the demise of the snake. So what happened after? TVNZ upheld 1,500 complaints against him. The complaints committee decided that both comments about Shed Addiction, the comments breached proper broadcasting standards of good taste and decency, fairness and discrimination, and denigration. Communications Minister Stephen Joyce suggested that he was becoming a liability, and Māori Affairs Minister Peter Sharple suggested he should go. He resigned on the 10th of October. TVNZ Chairman Sir John Anderson and Chief Executive Rick Ellis made a written apology to Sir Anand Sachinand on the 11th of October, and New Zealand's High Commissioner in New Delhi apologised formally after the Shed Addiction incident. Some final points. There are differences between the media types. YouTube, everyone gets an equal say. It's a very democratic media in that respect. The newspaper shows a more sanitised view without obscenity, as Jim mentioned earlier. The level at which they analyse, i.e. the higher level or lower level again, and the reactions that they incite from people. The conversation that takes place, the newspaper leads to letters to the editor, which takes some time and is not anonymous. The YouTube comments are instant, anonymous, and basically give you gratification as soon as you post. Right, the medium shapes the message. This is an important thing to come out of this. YouTube comments forums seem to be a breeding ground for this incivility, especially if we compare it against the TV1 comment analysis as done by Anne Wahu in her analysis, which won't be covered here. One way in which it was encouraged is the format. The content video is at the top, followed by the top rated comments, then a place to add your own, with the most recent posts just below it. This means that instead of just posting to the content video, comments are often influenced by previous people's comments, especially if they're disagreed with. The TV1 video comment posts require an extra click to see the comments that were previously posted. So if we compare this with the TV1 website videos and how to comment on that, it may be a way to avoid the cyclical degeneration of conversation, especially on controversial issues, if we make it a requisite that they have to make an extra click before they see people's other comments. And this is especially true for issues in which people's own opinions are wanted without influence of other people's and exacerbation. Even the single extra click on the TV1 website seems all that was required to save at least some quality of conversation. This is just a web shot of a YouTube clip. I'm sure you've all seen the setup before. This video at the top comments, and this is where you can add your own. You just have to have an account to sign up, which takes absolutely no time at all. And these are the comments that are previously posted. And so you can see that if you actually want to post a comment, you can see what people have written just below it. And this influences your opinion. Okay, questions?
We'll pause now and take some questions specifically for Karen and the details around the poll.
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how the medium shapes the message and your thoughts on that.
All right, medium shapes the message because how you are able to talk about, to express your opinion does shape how, what your opinion comes out as. So, as I explained just before, the YouTube, basically, when you're posting a comment, you see what everyone else has said. And if you, say, disagree with what they've posted, such as if you see a really inflammatory remark or something like that, you're not just going to post what you wanted to post, a remark about the video. You're going to be, well, a lot of the time people are incited by what they say into writing something that's a lot more vulgar and often a bit more extreme than what they would have originally posted. Whereas if we go on to other mediums, for example, newspapers, then if someone wants to reply to that, then it comes across as very, it's a lot more formal, there's a lot less obscenities, and it's basically a whole other kettle of fish you're looking
The other major issue was that in letters of editor, you've got to give your identity. And the key characteristic of the social media is that most of these handles are made up. Karen's not showing obscene handles that are made up, but it's fairly obvious that a lot of them are meant for particular purposes, which is to provide either what's going to be later called a cloak of anonymity, or I think a cloak of cowardice, because this is not stuff that's presented in everyday life. So saying these kind of things in everyday life would actually require an immense amount of courage that I don't think most people have.
Hello. Jim mentioned in the introduction the kind of the authorization, the kind of permission to do this. And I wondered if, when you went through, you could say more about that as a kind of process, not just the kind of construction of a particular space where it takes place, but I mean, are there levels of authorization? Is there a pattern to authorization? I mean, and how conscious is that? I mean, as a kind of process.
What are you talking about as authorization, sorry?
Well, just that it doesn't just happen, but somehow it's permitted, it's allowed. I took the word authorization from Jim, sorry. But I was wondering how it was reflected in your work, and so I wondered what the signal keys were, besides there just being, you know, I mean, a place where you can post stuff. I mean, it's not, beyond the site, is there more you can say about what permits this, what allows this, what seems to you know, be the necessary encouragement, and are there gradations, and is there a kind of shape to this authorization?
Well, basically what's coming out is that a lot of people feel that there is sort of a social authorization. Everyone's a comedian when they're on the internet, basically. You're getting everyone from all age groups that are getting access to this medium. There are people who are saying, well, I'm just 15 and I see that this comment is blah, 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 whatever. And I also think that there's sort of a social acceptability, that if you're going to look at YouTube, you're going to see some pretty weird stuff. And I think that comes across as when you see other people's comments and they've all got jokes in them, or for the Sheila Dixit example, everyone was saying, Paul, you're the dipshit. And when you say things like that, people are saying, well, that's a joke. And then elaborating further and keeping it going. And so it's just this cyclical degeneration, is you see one person doing it and you either get enraged in that or think it's funny and decide to carry it on, and it just keeps going round and round and round. It just gets worse as it goes on.
Arama might have some more to say on this one. Did you want to pick
I was just going to mention a couple of points, and there's three kind of sources that I see as well. It's what Karen's just mentioned, and that is Paul Henry's comments make it seem like it's okay to talk like this, because he's someone who's saying it in the mass media. So people are making comments, been given authorization by him to carry on and agree with him. Secondly, as Karen just mentioned, people egg each other on the internet as well, and they refer to each other's comments and say, yeah, I agree with you, you know. And thirdly, the editors of the sites who don't remove those types of posts authorise it being there, I suppose.
Yeah, the first point you mentioned was the whole penthouse influencing what Facebook lets out, as Jim mentioned earlier.
All right, thank you. Do you have any comment about just New Zealand, where we are, or are you coming to that, in terms of when you compare the basement social media commentary with the, is it the house?
The penthouse?
Oh, yes, okay, yes, the penthouse print media commentary. Have you got any comment on, you know, if we just look at one, it's a bit depressing, and we look at the other one, perhaps it's a bit naive. What kind of picture does it give us of New Zealand in general? Can we look at it like that? Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I know Adam is going into more theoretical analysis based on that, but based on my work, it's not coming out pretty.
I think that for that general theory, our work is going to cover it later on. So we'll look more to specific things about Henry for the moment.
I'm just wondering if there is a code of ethics for media presenters?
Media presenters, well, they've all got to abide by the Broadcasting Authority and the rules laid down there, and that's why he got blown out of the water by the TVNZ committee.
You talked about the anonymity allowing people to go a lot further. I was wondering if you're excited with the way that the internet, I guess, originally started off with full anonymity and everyone was sort of happy man 74, but how it's actually now moving towards, especially with the likes of Facebook integration, where you actually log in with your Facebook or your Google account, which is normally obviously a personal account. Are you excited to see possibly the level of conversation in social media actually increase and the, I guess, the discourse actually set up another level as we see them move away from anonymity in these social forums?
Well, I don't think they're actually moving away as much. I mean, you can have separate email accounts. I myself have 3. So, you know, you can still be completely anonymous on YouTube and stuff like that. I do know of people who have one account that they use for these social sites and one that they use for their real everyday life because they just don't want to get the spam that you get from it.
So, sorry, statistically, are you saying that there isn't a move away from anonymity?
I'm not actually sure about the statistics, but I know that it's still completely anonymous if you wish it to be. And if you're saying really inflammatory remarks or you're a troll, as I mentioned earlier, then you're definitely not going to have your real name tagged on the end of that.
Mine is more a comment than a question, just around the whole anonymity issue, because for many people, particularly for women, anonymity is really important because there are plenty of examples of getting death threats, rape threats, extreme sexual comment that is abusive, and to the extent of people identifying details such as mobile numbers and home addresses and actually in real life harassing someone for something that has been put on a social media forum, and I think that's the other side to the importance of anonymity.
Definitely. I completely agree with that. This is just basically showing how people can abuse this anonymity and just really cause strife if they want to.
My question is it correct I've had Paul Henry is employed by another radio station again?
Sorry?
Paul Henry.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be working with TV, some media.
Oh yeah, he's working for MediaWorks now.
So does it mean what he did doesn't really matter?
Well, I see it matters. I know a lot of the politicians and stuff commented to see that it matters. The commissioner over in New Delhi who had to formally apologise quite probably definitely thinks that it's you know, a big thing. But I do see that possibly his rehiring in a public forum is going to be a bad signal.
There's also a number of things that, part of the comments were that Henry is a shock jock and that it's appropriate for this kind of radio type of media. Paul here actually appeared on his show and said that Paul Henry held fire, and that he's a slightly chastened.
He's modified about the burqa quite recently, where he backed off. He started to say what some would say, and then he just gave it away. Okay. And so he's now self-censoring.
Although he has not been publicly apologetic, there have been calls. I mean, he's not on TV One. TV One was a top-rated show. This is another medium, but it isn't quite the same level of prestige.
What does it give us, you know, after all this? It's not giving us the right image about New Zealand and the media, the standards.
You're right, it says it's okay.
We've had similar instances of this happen in America and in other countries, and it sort of depends on the topic, whether it's socially acceptable or not. Was in your research, was there any way to derive like a demographic profile? And was it like 15 to 17 for the really, you know, derogatory comments? Was there any way to derive a demographic profile from that? And from that, could you make an extrapolation that it's socially acceptable amongst a certain age?
No, unfortunately, there isn't any demographic. A few people do have personal details on their profiles, but that's really limited. You know, not many people do.
Yeah, just a comment, an observation. I saw Australian breakfast TV shortly afterwards, and what struck me was something came up about women, and the female presenter was just really clear. She said, "We don't talk like that on this program," and then they moved on. And what struck me was how ineffectual the other people were around calling her in the whole. So I think that the whole culture of TV had become that it's okay. You know, I mean, you're always going to get kind of a single renegade, but it's all of our responsibility to say to people, that's not okay, you know.
Yeah.
But my question was, it seems in the last 5 years that media has encouraged this kind of more sort of interactive approach. You know, you mentioned the Stuff website, they have these stupid attitude polls every day. And even on national radio, Morning Report, they read off, you know, 2 or 3 people's comments. Do you think that might have done its day? You know, like the comments are so sort of stupid. Do they add that much to kind of?
I think that some can add worth to what we're. I'm sorry. Can add worth to what we're talking about. Some people do have valid opinions. They have well thought out arguments. It's just that in YouTube, in particular, there's not a lot of that, especially on these discussions. But then, you know, maybe that's just the topic because people went onto the YouTube for the Sheila Dixit thinking it was hilarious, or someone pushed them onto saying, you know, look at this, it's a hoot. But I do think there is a place for interaction between the public and the media. We've got to have, basically we've got to have communication between the basement and the penthouse. So yeah, I do think it has a place. I think that it does need to be a bit more monitored so that we're not just getting this filth.
Just one more for me, along the same lines. I was just wondering if the TVNZ site was moderated as well, whereas YouTube isn't. Is that why they would get this?
TV1?
TV1.
I'm not actually sure if they monitor. They quite probably do though, because but with YouTube, people who post the site have to remove remarks, or you can have a remark removed if it has too many negative votes from people. But often people don't really bother. They just write an inflammatory remark or an insulting remark to them instead of just voting it off or reporting it as spam.
But the one extra click might not make that much of a difference if TV1 is moderating it anyway.
Well, I think that if people are posting their comments before they see what everyone else has written, then it's going to at least save some face.
We'll take, this will be the last question or comment, and then we'll move on to Aramas, and then we'll have a chance for a general question and comment.
Sorry, if I can make one more remark to this lady's comment. Just also the fact that TV1 might be a more serious medium, some people might think, and that might be another reason why it's actually a bit less obscene.
Just a quick comment. There's an element here that we're not talking about, and that's the political element. The difference between the 2 incidents in Paul Henry, the Dixit comment and the Anand Satyanand comment, was that the Dixit remarks sparked a high-level diplomatic exchange between India and New Zealand, where India in New Delhi called the High Commissioner from New Zealand to India, into their office, and it sparked an international incident. So I think that needs to be taken into account in the discussion.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of the fallout from what happened for that incident. We didn't see that for the Anand Satyanand, probably because he is